I'm Axel Cushing, Editor-in-Chief at GameLuster, and this is a special edition of The Score, a weekly digest of news and commentary from GameLuster and around the industry for the week ending August 5th, 2023. This week's episode is a special edition because we are focusing on a single topic. I'm speaking about the recent State of the Game post that was put up by Bungie regarding Destiny 2 and the community reaction to it. It's very hard to understand exactly what Bungie was trying to accomplish with this particular post, because it does not do anything other than completely infuriate the player base. This is not a case of, oh, hey, we've, this is the state of the game, everything is fine, or this is the state of the game, we know this needs to be improved, and here's what we're doing to make that happen. This has been a case of, this is the state of the game, suck it up, because it's going to be this way from now until we decide to finally stop making Destiny 2. There were a great number of unspoken truths that were kind of indirectly mentioned in the State of the Game post. But reading between the lines, there is almost a contemptuous feel to it. There is a sense that Joe Blackburn in particular is basically over it, that he is not interested in actually developing the game. He's just filling out the clock until the final shape releases, and then he'll do whatever he's going to be doing afterwards. Once final shape comes out and once that particular year is over, you kind of get the feeling that, yep, Joe Blackburn is done. He's checked out. And you may ask, how does that, or how do you get that feeling? What leads you to believe that Blackburn in particular, that Bungie in general, has checked out on Destiny 2? Well, Blackburn himself actually kind of set the stage for that when he started off talking about the state of PvP. The PvP mode Crucible is, and has been, a major component of Destiny and Destiny 2. It has been that way since the first game launched. So 2014, Destiny comes out, there's the PvE stuff, obviously, and there's the Crucible. We get the Iron Banner, which at that time was a semi-competitive mode, and we got Trials of Osiris, which was highly competitive. Destiny 2 comes out, we've got Crucible. We do eventually get Iron Banner, but it's not quite as competitive. We don't have Trials of Osiris to start. We do ultimately get Trials of the Nine, which then shockingly mutates into Trials of Osiris. For the first couple of years, there was a good amount of new PvP content coming out, along with PvE. And then at some point around Beyond Light, maybe even a little bit before, I'm not entirely certain, there seems to be a dearth of good PvP content. The number of maps that come out are minimal. You're not getting PvP-specific weapon quests the same way you did the first year or two in Destiny 2. You don't have the Mountaintop. You don't have Redrix's Claymore anymore. You're basically getting the same ritual weapon from the Vanguard as you do from Crucible, as you do from Gambit. The same weapon 3 times. But meanwhile, the actual PvP content has been, radically reduced. We don't have hardly any maps coming out. We get one a year. We don't have new armor sets. There has not been an actual new armor set in something like 2 years. And if you look at it, the armor sets are following the same pattern as the ritual weapons. It's the same armor set. It is the exact same item mesh. It's just slightly skinned different with the appropriate color scheme for that activity. And somehow Bungie feels that this is cool, that this is an acceptable choice. And it is during this that Blackburn engages in some seriously circular logic. The reason that they have given for the lack of new PvP content, to quote Blackburn himself, "When we do focus our resources on building new Crucible maps, it comes with a trade-off of multiple teams' bandwidth on work that contributes to a variety of experiences that players also hold dear, such as new story or exotic mission content, core activities that make up the foundation of each season, or new destinations. Crucible is one of those core activities, or it's supposed to be. It is one of the core activities. Forget the seasonal activities for a moment. Gambit. This latest season, you have the deep dives, you have salvage. But for the players who have not gotten the season pass, Crucible is the core activity, or one of the core activities. And there's a lot of players who are still playing Crucible. And Blackburn is saying, oh, well, hey, when we have to, work on actual Crucible stuff, that's taking away from all the other stuff we're doing. He's also pointing to how bringing back reprised maps involves porting to the latest version of Destiny 2, which requires additional resources. And I'm listening to this and I'm like, okay, I understand that you guys went to a new engine. I understand that you did new things, that you've added new features, and yet the basic geometry has not changed. There should have been a system in place to say, all right, all of our old content, all of the stuff that happened before we went to the new engine, that will be brought in, and we will get that tweaked, because that is still part of the game experience. That does not seem to have happened, and that seems to be a terrible failure of imagination, a failure of diligence on the part of Bungie. This should have been expected. This should have been planned for, and it wasn't. And as a result, Crucible is not fun. Now, I will be the first to admit that I'm not a hardcore PvP player. Frankly, I kind of suck. I'll have a good game once in a while, but if you look at my PvP stats, they are abysmal. I still do it because, there are things that need to be done. There's always Iron Banner. I have tried playing in Trials a little bit, and that is a thoroughly miserable experience, whether you're going in solo or whether you're going in with a fire team. Crucible has just become a complete misery to play. There are very few close Crucible matches these days. It's kind of a miracle if you're not getting curb stomped at a 2-to-1 ratio for points. And Bungie thinks this is acceptable. And they're proclaiming, oh, hey, we're going to deliver a whole new Iron Banner mode for Season 23, and we're going to be doing a whole new weapon reward for Season 22. And they're super excited about reprising one map from 2018 for Season 23, which is going to be the last season of this particular year in Destiny. That's going to be the last season right before the final shape. And this is nuts. The second big point of discontent, and again, more circular logic here employed by Blackburn, regards the game mode Gambit. Gambit premiered during the Forsaken expansion, and Forsaken was fun. Forsaken was probably the best expansion at that time since The Taken King. Although, being completely fair, since Destiny 2's launch was kind of iffy, I would say it was a very low bar to clear. But in the last few years, Gambit has withered. Now, Blackburn, in his State of the Game, was talking about how last year they went through and they did all sorts of changes to Gambit as far as fundamentals, primevals, how to handle invasions, ammo economy, and rewards. And he's saying, well, these updates didn't move the needle for player engagement. Although we know our Gambit fans mostly care about new or returning maps, this is an area of the game with lower engagement that would take resources away from more popular parts of the game to shore up. Translation: Gambit's not doing well, so we're not going to put in any effort to make Gambit do well, which is tantamount to we're killing Gambit. The lack of awareness on this just absolutely baffles me. I cannot understand how somebody can look and say, oh yeah, we did this. I cannot understand how somebody cannot see the trajectory, matching the amount of work to the player engagement and seeing, we clearly did not put in enough effort on this. No, Bungie's takeaway is, well, we tried, better luck next time, we're not going to do anything more with Gambit, which is a shame. Gambit was fun. Gambit still can be fun. Although, being fair, again, it's one of those either you're getting curb stomped by the enemy or you are absolutely wrecking face all the time. There does not seem to be a middle ground. There are very few close Gambit matches. part of that player engagement. Why is it that player engagement is down? Well, let's see. You have no equivalent of Redrix's Claymore or the Mountaintop to chase after. There's no unique Gambit ritual weapon reward. You have the same armor sets that Crucible and Vanguard have, just skinned green. Seriously, that's literally the only difference. Gambit originally launched with 6 maps, and we are now down to, I believe, 3. One in the EDZ, one in Nessus, and one in Mars. And they are talking about how they are working to bring back one of the maps from Gambit's original release, set in the Dreaming City. It's like, okay, well, that's great. That gets us up to 4 maps. Where's the other 2? Where are the maps that we still haven't gotten? Where are the maps that should have been added since? No, that takes away too many resources. The State of the Game post also talked about armor set rewards. And again, Blackburn admits, yeah, players have pointed out, we didn't release a new armor set for ritual playlists with Lightfall as previously called out in our yearly release schedule. Delivering ritual armor sets at the rates we have in the past has become increasingly challenging, especially considering these sets have historically had very low adoption by players as both base armor and cosmetic ornaments. Now, just to clarify that a little bit for people who haven't played Destiny 2, there is a transmog mechanism in place whereby you can unlock pieces of armor into a cosmetic ornament. But once again, circular logic. These have very low adoption, so we're not going to do anything to try and improve the adoption rate. And again, there's no motivation. If you look at the armor sets for the first year of Destiny 2, even the second year of Destiny 2, you have armor that is distinct. You have armor that looks wildly different compared to other pieces of armor. There was no question when you had a piece of Vanguard armor. There was no question when you had a piece of Crucible armor. There was no question when you had a piece of Gambit armor. They were distinctive, they were unique, they were interesting. Up until very recently, I had held on to a number of first-year Gambit armor, what is referred to as the Ancient Apocalypse set, for all 3 characters, Warlock, Hunter, Titan, because those armors had been deprecated due to various updates over the years where I wasn't playing Destiny 2. And when they brought those armors back as a focusing option, I was like, oh, okay, I don't feel bad about this anymore. Okay, I can let these armors go because there will be current replacements, there will be ways to bring them back. I can free up that space in my vault. And I did, and I'm happy about that. But it is those armor sets that I brought back. Because if I look at the other armor sets, if I look at the Viperadax armor set, I see the same Crucible and Vanguard armor that I see, from the other vendors. It's just shaded green. What motivation do I have to do that? You haven't created 3 armor sets. You've created 1 armor set with 3 different names and 3 slightly different color configurations. How precisely can you sit there and say, this is hard, when you haven't put in any effort to that effect? How do you do that? And then you have the temerity to say, well, we've had low adoption rates, so we're not going to do this anymore. The unspoken truth about this is that there is a lot of effort being put forth towards all sorts of other cosmetic armors. The recent Solstice event had about 15 different armor sets as cosmetics that you could pick up, or armor ornaments rather. And these were bright, colorful, glowing, eye-mugging ornaments. These were all cosmetics. Alright, you didn't need to be doing anything radical, you didn't need a specific set of armor to attach these to. These were universal ornaments. You could dress up as the gaudiest, shiniest Guardian you wanted to be if you wanted to shell out. But they've got all these armor sets, or all these ornament sets rather, because that makes them money. That makes direct money. So clearly, there's a lot of effort being put forth towards those cosmetic armor sets. And it's not even just the event stuff. The event stuff is an element. But every season, we get 8 or 9 different ships, 8 or 9 different sparrows. We get all sorts of weapon ornaments. We get armor ornaments for exotic armor. And if you want them, well, you can pay through the nose. And seriously, you are going to pay through the nose. At the very least, you're going to be paying $10, more likely 20. You have all the collaboration armors that have come out. Recently, Bungie made a collaboration, or did a collaboration with Sony for different armor ornaments based off of hit games. So Hunter's got an ornament set based off Horizon Zero Dawn. Titan's got one based off God of War. Warlock's got one based off of Ghost of Tsushima. And they look cool. They really do look cool. I'm not even going to deny that. But they're also $20 a pop. So if you want all of these cool armor sets, that's $60. That's more than the damn game at this point. The unspoken truth of this state of the game is, from Gambit to Vanguard to Crucible, all of this, we are not going to put forth any effort that does not make us money directly. We are spending all of our time, all of our sweat, all of our focus on filling the Eververse with useless cosmetic crap. To hell with the actual functioning pieces of the game. We'll let you look pretty. And that is absolutely disgusting. At this point, Destiny is probably the most expensive free-to-play game that you can get into. Fortnite is not that expensive. Warframe, I know for sure and for certain, is not that expensive. And Warframe at least has a mechanism in place for you to actually build up to get the stuff that you can buy directly. Or you can grind for it. You cannot grind for any of this stuff in Destiny 2. And this is a serious problem. Because Bungie is going to say, oh no, hey, we're doing great. Except that they're not doing great. They have had ridiculous numbers of server outages, emergency maintenance periods in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day. Alright, this is not a case of, oh, whoops, we need to take the servers down later tonight, around 2, 3 a.m., don't worry, it'll be down for a little bit. It's emergency maintenance in the middle of the day, 3, 4, 5 hour windows, longer, because something has cropped up and fallen apart. You are seeing massive numbers of streamers who are leaving the game. They are leaving their coverage of Destiny 2, which is how a good number of them make their bread and butter. And they're saying, you know what, screw it. It's not worth it anymore. And these aren't little penny ante streamers. These are major names. You have Aztec Ross. You have Ibantis. You have True Vanguard. All of these major streamers, and nobody hates streamers as much as I do, or rather the influence that they have on a game. But if they're saying, screw it, if they're saying, this is no longer worth our time, and this is no longer worth our effort because this game is objectively terrible, and they're complaining about the exact same things that rank and file players are experiencing, it's a serious problem. I am one of those rank and file players, and I cannot disagree with what a lot of the streamers are saying because I've run into it. I'm having the exact same problems they are. I don't know where this is all going to fall out. I do know that as of right now, I'm paid up through the rest of the year. Alright, so I'm going to be probably playing through the next 2 seasons for Lightfall because the money's spent. I've got friends that I play with, and there is a part of me that is at least morbidly curious about how it's all going to fall out from a narrative perspective. But I genuinely cannot see myself buying the final shape at this point in time. I don't care how hype the August showcase is going to be. It no longer matters. Prior to the state of the game, prior to this disrespect that Bungie put out, I was on the fence a little bit. I was not entirely certain what was going to happen. I thought, okay, I may do this, or I may not. I couldn't quite decide. And then Joe Blackburn helped make the decision for me. I can't play this anymore. I cannot play a game that demands my money, that demands my time, that demands my energy, and basically tells me to go to hell at the same time. I cannot support a company any further that treats its players like dirt. I cannot speak in defense of a developer that is prioritizing mindless cosmetics which have no function in the game other than to make you look good over back-end stability, over play mode enhancement, over cohesive narrative improvement. There have been some good moments here and there so far in Lightfall and in the two seasonal activities, or the two seasonal arcs rather, but it is eerie, and I do mean eerie, that a decision that has come out narratively so perfectly sums up my mood. Prior to this season, Bungie was doing a lot of lore books, and I actually kind of missed that. There has been a dearth of those for this season. But this season they started trying something new. They were trying to give a more live experience, if you will, in terms of lore exposition, by creating an activity called Veil Containment. Basically, you go down to the chamber where the final boss fight of the Lightfall campaign happens, and you're unlocking a number of records, basically audio logs from one of the story's lore-specific characters from way back when, a scientist named Chioma Essie. To give you some background, Essie was a researcher, along with another character, Maya Sundaresh. They were both mentioned in Destiny 1, centered around the Vex. They were both researching the Vex, they were working on Venus as part of the Ishtar Collective, and through various trials and tribulations, the two of them ended up going to Neptune. There's a lot of lore covering Maya Sundaresh. Not so much for Chioma Essie. The last couple of weeks, there has been kind of a narrative, a reveal that Maya Sundaresh, or rather a copy of her personality, was added to an exo that players knew as Lakshmi 2. Lakshmi 2 was the leader of the Future War Cult faction, which Bungie got rid of some time ago. And the last few audio logs have been Chioma Essie's observations and mounting horror about the whole thing. It's like, why would you do that? But this latest log, the one that just came out a few days before the state of the game, as it turns out, I don't think there has been a better stand-in for the audience in this 1 week than Chioma Essie. Up to this point, the log entries have all been nicely annotated. They've all been numerically arranged. It's always a case of, this is a scientist recording observations, making specific entries, establishing a chronology, establishing a timeline. Okay, we got from point A to point B to point C, and this is how it happened, like a scientist. But this week, the log entry was not annotated in that fashion. You hear her saying, Chioma Essie, log entry, whatever. And that hit hard. If that had come prior to a different state of the game than what we got. If we had gotten a state of the game that spoke to a renewed commitment to improving core activities to try and fix the player engagement problems that Blackburn bemoaned in this state of the game, then that particular log entry still would have been narratively surprising, but it also would have been self-contained. It would have been a case of we're seeing the downward spiral of a person as they descend into despair. We see somebody at the end of the rope. But listening to that log in the wake of State of the Game, Chioma Essie has become the stand-in for, I think, a large chunk of the audience in Destiny 2. It's a case of whatever. Bungie not caring about their players, not caring about their core activities, chasing this chimera for inscrutable and really ridiculous reasons, mirrors the pursuit that Maya Sundaresh has been giving into so hard. It's actually kind of scary, because I feel Chioma Essie at this particular moment. I feel that frustration. I feel that dejection. I feel the sense of doom. It doesn't matter what the final shape is. It doesn't matter if everything gets sorted out. It doesn't matter that Nathan Fillion comes back, or even Gina Torres. None of it matters. All that matters is that Bungie has checked out of their own game, and yet still expects us to pay for it. Still expects us to play a game that they specifically and deliberately have said, we don't care about improving anymore. That is the single worst possible response. That is the absolute stupidest message to send to the community. I understand Bungie has had trouble with the community. I understand that they've been busy dealing with cheaters. I understand that they have been busy trying to fend off death threats. But that is not an excuse. That is not justification enough to say, you know what? Screw it. You'll pay us, and we don't care. We don't care what happens as long as you give us money. You can whine and you can moan, but you'll pay us anyway. And that is dangerously stupid. It is myopic. It is contemptible. You're going to justify screwing over the entire body of the community over the bad actions of a few. And that, I think, is probably the final straw for me. I may still play Destiny 2, at least a little bit. I may do just enough to get through the seasonal content, but if this is Bungie's attitude, if this is the hill that Bungie wants to die on, then they die alone. They will be abandoned by their players because they treated their players shabbily. And if they are expecting players to miraculously forget that this is their attitude when it comes to Marathon coming out, I think they're in for a very rude surprise. Because if you treat your players like dirt in one game, there's no telling when you're going to treat your players like dirt in the other game. It's not a question of if, it is a question of when. And we can't let that happen. Bungie needs to mend fences. There needed to be some serious contrition. There needed to be an honest, hard-hitting, self-reflective state of the game that said, we have screwed up badly and we are going to try and regain your trust just long enough to bring a successful conclusion to this story. That's what they needed. And that's not what we're going to get at all. Ever. Bungie has washed their hands of Destiny 2 with this state of the game. And if that's the case, then as players, we can wash our hands of Bungie. I don't care if that hurts Marathon. I don't care if that precludes bringing back Myth in some new form. None of it matters. Because Bungie decides, yeah, we're going to treat all our players like dirt. Fine. You don't want to deal with us anymore? Then you won't have to. We'll just stop buying your games. See how long you can last off $3 billion with that. My guess is not very long. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe. You can find other news articles along with guides, reviews, and features on our website, GameLuster.com. The opening music for the score was written and performed by Nirav Gandhi. I'm Axel Cushing, Editor-in-Chief at GameLuster, and this has been a special edition of The Score. Thank you for listening.